Well, hello everyone. I'm here today with Rhea. So Rhea and I met on Instagram, a lovely place where there's a lot of distraction, but also so grateful for the amazing connections that do get brought up. And Rhea is in India, and she is an empowerment coach. She helps women heal from their relationship with food, body image, and she herself has an amazing personal story of transforming her own relationship with food and weight loss and all of those really juicy topics that so many people grapple with, but I feel like not enough people talk about it in an open way. And so, thank you so much, Rhea, for being on here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to do this.
Yeah. So, Rhea, would you like to say any more about yourself before we dive into just really sharing your story? Or I guess they could be woven together, right? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, like
absolutely.
that's really like my main purpose of having you on is to really share that
hmm
story because it's so common, but people don't
hmm
really acknowledge it because, like we were just saying before, like so many people think like, well, there are such bigger problems in the world, like struggling
hmm
with the food and struggling with the body and weight seems so
hmm
little, but it really
hmm
is not a little thing because it impacts
hmm
every aspect of your life.
It
And
does.
so, yeah, and so I would love for you, Ria, to share your story of like how did you come to this where you are now, but where did you
Uh-huh.
come from, and what were the things that caused you to have these struggles with food? Because so many people have that in common. That's my story
Yeah.
too.
So I think I know I started struggling with food and my body image around the age of 13. I think that's the time
Mm.
you start of understanding what fashion is, what beauty is,
Yeah.
that's like the teenage time.
Yeah.
So I believe that my pattern started from there because I think that um So yeah, it started when I was around 13 and it went on for like over a decade. I was struggling with it up like till I was around 20, 25, 26 years old.
Hmm.
And you know, it was such a it was, as you said, you almost normalize feeling this way because I feel like it's so normal. The talks about like diets and
Hmm.
food, the way we speak about it in society, it almost makes you feel like this is the way of living. So
Yeah.
I thought that whatever I was feeling was normal. I thought restriction was normal. I thought this was my way of living. So I started off as feeling like this is normal. I need to lose weight because society deems this body to be perfect. And I think at the age of 13, 14, when you're so young, you're just looking to want to be accepted.
Yeah.
You're looking to want to be seen. And that's why there's so many mindset and beliefs that really lead to a person's struggle with their food and their body image because it's not really just about food as what I always say, it's so much more. It goes deeper than
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
that's why like when you're
Mm.
healing, you can't just be like, okay, I'm just gonna allow myself to eat everything. There's just so many mindset shifts that you need to do in order to reach a point where you're truly comfortable
Yeah.
around food and in your body.
Yeah.
So yeah, it started around then and think it just it just kept on snowballing where
Mm.
every and the thing is, I didn't want to live deep down. I didn't want to live like that, but the control of it made me feel safe because
Yeah.
I was looking a certain way. But then also, I would just I would lose all this weight and gain it all back because
Mm.
clearly it wasn't working for my body. It kept
Hmm.
on going up and down, up and down. And when I lost all the weight, I told myself that finally I'm gonna stay at this weight and I'm not gonna gain the weight back. But
Mm.
like it was done through such unsustainable methods. It was
Yeah.
done through a lot of restriction. It was done through a lot of punishment to my body. And there was a lot of, um, you know, um, I hate to use the word, but I don't know what other word to use for it. But there was just a lot of self-hate for the way that
Yeah.
there was just a lack of appreciation for the way I looked and for the way I was. And I felt like I feel like when you're going through this journey, you feel like there's something wrong with you because everyone else around you, I feel like you notice that everyone else around you seems to be having a great relationship with food
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they seem to be confident in your body and all you really want is to be like that person, but you just don't know how. Everything just feels like you feel lost in that moment. So yeah, I went through it for quite a few years and I think I reached my tipping point when there were just a lot of changes in my life. I think
Mhm.
my husband and I were moving countries and I was in a new job. And I think that was the worst my relationship with my food and my body was, because
Mhm.
I was really using food to soothe my emotions, and then there was a lot of guilt and shame around that.
Yeah.
And I really had to ask myself this question, like, how long? How long am I really going to live life? Because it's already been so many years. I've
Yeah.
lived so many years
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
being stuck in this, because you truly feel stuck. You don't know any other way out, and I did try to reach out to coaches to help me
Hmm.
prior to um prior to that. But then I feel like I never had the courage to actually want to heal,
Wow.
because
Uh-huh.
I was like, does that mean that I'm going to lose control? Does that mean that I'm going to be judged by people if I gain weight? I had all these questions in my mind, so I
Yeah.
never really accepted, the journey to healing. And I think I think everyone has their tipping point, and I reached mine
Yeah.
because I started asking myself, like, how long? How long am I really going to do this?
Wow.
And yeah, and then I basically reached my tipping point, and I was like, I'm going to really understand what is it beyond food that is actually leading me to lead a life like this. Like, why am I choosing this one? Why am I so attached to diets and controlling?
Yeah.
And the answers that you get, it's so fascinating, because you realize that it's actually not really just about the food. It's really not just about your weight.
No. No.
It's a lot more deeper than that. It
Yeah.
has so much to do with your childhood. It has so much to do with what you've picked up in your life that leads
Mm.
you to lead a life like that. So it when you sort of have those realizations, you sort of understand that um I feel like when you're in that journey, there's a lot of self-hate, but when you are in your journey towards healing, there's a lot of compassion, because you
Yeah.
almost feel like this odd sheep who's living this life stuck. And then usually when you're in your healing journey, you sort of feel like okay, there's a lot of compassion for yourself and for that healing journey, if you know what I mean.
Mm. That's so hard to arrive at, though. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so intrigued to hear. Like you said, there was like a tipping point, right? Where you just thought,
Hmm.
like, how long am I going to keep doing this? Like,
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
helped you get to that place? And then what were
Hmm.
some of the things that helped you on that healing? Because I know when it comes to, I know we all have that deep voice inside, right? That says like,
Hmm.
this isn't right, right? But there's such
Hmm.
a big gap between like what you should do between actually doing it. So what were
Yeah.
the things that actually helped you actually embark on that journey and stick with it? Because like the temptation to,
Hmm.
break off is like every day.
Yeah. So I think there were a lot of factors, I feel like as you become older, I feel like
Mm.
um you also start to look at life differently. You start
Yeah,
thinking about your future a lot more. So I think
yeah,
that really helped me. Like,
yeah.
I was trying to think about my future, because it wasn't just food that and my body that I was struggling with. I think it had a lot to do with my mental health. My food and my
Mm.
body
Hmm.
just stayed with me for the longest time. So I was like, I really want to change my life,
Yeah.
because I wanted to, there was like this sinking hollow feeling that I was like, I can't be, there's so much more to life than just being stuck. So I
Mm.
think it was knowing that. And it's really interesting, because I actually worked with a coach, with an empowerment coach, to help me with my anxiety, because I had a lot of anxiety
Yeah.
as well, and which I needed help with, and my confidence.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first crack, because the work that I did there really helped me want to heal other areas of my life. And one thing
Mm.
that I hadn't touched upon was food and my body.
Yes.
And but then a lot of the help that I was getting out there at that time wasn't the help that I was looking for, because I feel like a lot of the perspective that I was getting was food freedom is about a lot of the food, a lot of the content and whatever I was seeing online was related to, I think it was a very negative connotation to food freedom, where they
Mm.
were like, oh, you just eat all that you want, and chocolates and chips and all of that. And I was just like, there's so much more to food freedom, and I really wanted to understand the depth of that. So that just really
Yes.
encouraged me to understand the surface. And I've
Yeah.
seen your content about it as well, because
Yeah.
it's not just about the food. It's about so much more.
No.
And there's a balance
No.
to food freedom. It's about understanding your body and how it
Yes.
responds to food,
Yes.
right? So I feel
Yes.
like there's a lot of misconception in the world about when we say give up dieting, but it's not just about giving up diets. There's a whole building trust within your body,
Yes.
that whole process that's involved. So I really wanted to understand that.
Yeah.
And when I really started to build that self-trust, I think that just pushed me and motivated me further to um to heal my relationship with food.
Yeah.
And I think it was like an example, and I think it's more like, well, I think it's more like a realization that you have. It's a bit hard to explain. I think you realize that enough is enough, and you want to be able to build a future for yourself that isn't like stuck. And I never, and I never thought that. I think it's the image that you have about yourself and the life that you want to live, and finally being able to achieve it. Like you finally
Mm.
want to get to your dream.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. The fact that that was enough to actually sustain you, right? Because I think because it's like it's a thought thing, right? Of thinking like, okay, well, I'm
Hmm.
thinking about my future. But like for a lot of people, like one of the things I've known about like the food struggles is that a lot of the times it's actually rooted in trauma. So
Yeah.
like and and I know the word trauma gets thrown around a lot. And what I mean is just it's not necessarily what happened to you. It's how you perceived it and how it impacted
Hmm.
your nervous system and your body,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So like,
Yeah.
someone who maybe was like never like outright abused, but they were
Hmm.
constantly just like overlooked or
Hmm.
neglected, they
Hmm.
begin to build a self-image that like, okay, I just don't matter. Like no one's gonna
Yeah.
like if I need help, no one's gonna help me. So like
Hmm. Hmm.
so I find like a lot of times like the root of the food struggles is actually rooted in trauma. It's because food became a way for you
Absolutely.
to like externally resource what
Hmm.
you never
Yeah.
received, right? And we needed those
Hmm.
things, right? Like especially as
Hmm.
kids, as young people. And don't get me wrong, like adults need it too. We all still
Yeah.
continue to need these things, right? They don't
Yeah.
like, go
Yeah.
away after you hit
Hmm.
18. Um,
Yeah.
right? But so I'm
Yeah.
so like, yeah, so it makes me feel like, oh, that's so good that like you were able to actually just sustain yourself through like just a mind shift change, right? Which is no small
I
thing, right? It's huge.
I think that, it was when you go through something for
Mm.
so long,
Yeah.
then you kind of understand that, okay, this is not working for me. So
Yeah.
I think it's like about having that mindset reset where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this isn't working for me. So what can I do to actually, it's about actually breaking a pattern and breaking a
Mm.
habit. Because
Mhm.
as you said, it's so easy to just, and it is hard. It's hard when you're going through the journey and actually not fall back. And again, it has a lot to do with, as you said, validation. You feel like something is missing and you either, fill the gap through food, or sometimes you want to feel externally validated and
Yeah.
you want your body to look a certain way
Yeah.
to feel externally validated. So there's a lot of inner work
Yeah.
that really goes into it. And so I think the best way to describe it is that, I think I had like mini awakenings within my journey to get to the point where I was like, okay, I want to change my life now,
I
because
love that.
it started from, me wanting to heal my anxiety. And then
Mm.
it wanted me to build my confidence. And I
Mm.
think with that, I had like mini awakenings, because
Mm.
it's really hard to, I think, at least for me, it's very hard to one day wake up and be like, okay, I'm going to do the shift now. Like it wasn't an experience like that for me, but I think it was more like a journey
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which led me to this place where I was like, okay, I think I'm finally ready to address my food struggles and my body image struggles, because I've been going through it for so long.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, when you think
Hmm.
of it that way, it's like sometimes the length of time that you have been
Yeah.
stuck in a pattern, that is
Hmm.
enough to just prompt you to be like, I cannot keep going like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
like, what was the most difficult thing in that healing journey for you?
I think it was not falling back to old patterns.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
believing that you
Yeah.
can actually live life
Mm.
without the patterns. Because I think when you're so used to living life in this conditioning,
Mm.
also, I think our environment that's all you get to hear. You hear about diets, you hear about calories, everything. And with social media,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
all this information out there, it's so hard to feel like it's hard to not go back to your old patterns,
I
you
agree.
know,
Yes.
and it's hard to like put on blinkers and be like, I'm just gonna, work on myself and work on healing myself. And
Mm.
it took me a long time to block out the noise. But
Mm.
again, what I do like to say is that it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah. I
In your
love that.
journey, even if you make
Yeah.
a progress of like 1%, that progress is something.
Yeah.
You can't go from 0 to 100 when you've built such a strong pattern. You
Hmm.
can't go from 0 to 100. Um, there will you will see progress, but you have to be you have to be compassionate towards yourself, right? I feel like
Mm. Yeah.
it's really important in those times to actually see your progress. Otherwise, it can
Yes.
be like, oh, well, I'm not seeing any progress,
Yeah.
but you actually are. Like one,
Yeah.
like it could be something like not feeling like you want to eat food when you're feeling sad. That is
Hmm.
that is progress,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's so
Or
beautiful.
yeah, so I think it's those things. And I think the hardest thing is not to fall back, but I think again the hardest thing is also acknowledging progress, and that's again one of the most important things that you can do for yourself
Yeah.
in this journey.
Yeah, and I really love that you mentioned that because when it comes to like behavioral change psychology, one of the key things is you must focus on progress, not like
Mhm.
what you're lacking, right? Because like we're
Exactly.
so used to just focus on the lack. Like you said, like I
Yeah.
was reading one of your, oh, sorry, I was not reading, it was one of your like spoken posts lately where
Hmm.
you're talking about how when you used to struggle with body image and you'd like want to get down to a certain weight, and then
Hmm.
once you got to that weight, like you were like just afraid of gaining it back,
Yeah.
all of that
Yeah.
stuff, right? And then you were saying how, oh, maybe I just need to lose more then, right? And it's like
Hmm.
that's, I mean, I know that
Yeah.
intimately too. I had the exact same patterns,
Hmm.
and it just goes to show, right? Because in this dieting world, we're so obsessed with seeing results really quickly, right?
Hmm.
But the thing is
Hmm.
that when they happen quickly, they also fade very quickly because
Fade
you've not
very
changed your
quickly.
body. You've actually
Yeah.
deprived it and it actually went into
Hmm.
survival. And so
Yeah.
you've actually in the process made your metabolism worse so that,
Hmm.
when you do stop restricting, your body will gain it back plus more
Hmm.
because it's like it
Yeah.
thinks it's going to die. It's like, what the heck are you doing?
And this is my biggest issue with dieting is when
Mhm.
I hear people, I know people who are constantly on diets, but I'm like, your normal day-to-day life can't be a diet.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain this, but dieting can't be a way of living,
Mm.
right? But
Mhm.
I feel like we've made it a way of living where I feel like people are constantly saying they're on a diet, but I'm like, your regular life cannot involve diets. So
Yeah.
that's what I feel like the main issue with diets is that it's not a way of living.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
people use it like it's a way of living, and I'm like, but it won't make sense, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's so important to understand how to listen to your body and
Yes.
really build trust from within, rather than giving all that trust away to diets and all the information out there.
I'm so glad you said that because I'm like 100% with you on that. Like a lot of my
Mhm.
work is really about teaching people to trust their bodies again.
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
starts with actually listening to the body's signals.
Yeah.
Because when you restrict so much and you override hunger, you override thirst, or you override like overeating is another way of
Yeah.
overriding, right? It's,
Mhm.
you're
Yeah.
full, but you keep going.
Yeah.
And it's not a like again, it's not really a conscious thing because your body will drive you to do these things. But if you
Mhm.
constantly ignore it, then it's going to compensate like times three,
Exactly.
times 100,
Exactly.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I love that you mentioned that. It really is about actually establishing trust rather than
Mhm.
trying to get resources or knowledge from outside
Yeah.
and put it in. You really have to actually connect with yourself because like there's no one's
Mhm.
going to tell you. Well, I mean, people do tell you, but you won't find a way that works for you in the long term. Even when you
Yeah.
mention the word diet, like it's so funny because like when you in biology, a diet is just a what an animal eats, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
actually means how they
Exactly.
live, right? This is
Yeah.
what they eat. This is how they
Yeah.
sustain themselves. But we've like kind of perverted that word, right? To
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
diet is a way of living, but
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
it's become a
A special
temporary,
kind of, yeah, a temporary fix, a band-aid.
yeah, yeah. But really, lifestyle and diet, like these words shouldn't be so negative, but they've become
Mhm.
negative.
Yeah. And you know what I find so interesting is that we've been conditioned to believe that without a diet, we'll just end up eating junk food and we'll end up
Mm,
eating.
hmm.
Also, I mean, I hate categorizing food as junk food and non-junk food, but I feel like we've been conditioned to believe that we can't make mindful and nutritious decisions for ourselves. Like we aren't equipped as people to be able to do that because we would only be if we were left to our own devices, we'd only crave um things that are inherently not so nutritious,
Mm.
which I find very fascinating because I don't think that's the case.
No, I 100% agree with you. I
Because
think
I don't
once,
think our body would respond well to that. And that's again
yeah.
another sign.
Exactly, exactly. Because like I feel like our attraction or pull to the kind of nutritionally empty foods is actually not our bodies, but it's actually that survival programming,
Hmm.
and that
Hmm.
place of wound that we're operating from.
Uh-huh.
That's
Hmm.
and the conditioning, right? Like the
Hmm.
conditioning is thick, like we can't overlook the fact that these days, the modern world, like we are bombarded, and a
Hmm.
lot of the foods,
Absolutely.
right? Like it's true. It really isn't like you need a I think everyone needs like a basic level of nutritional
Hmm.
like education, right?
Absolutely.
But that being said, it's like nutrition is hardly the issue for most people,
Mm.
because most
Yeah.
people can just look that up on the internet and
Yeah.
figure
Yeah.
out, okay, this or that or that, whatever. And there's also so much noise around what you should and shouldn't eat. And and the really like anticlimactic thing is like you just need to connect with yourself again, and you will
It's so
you
true.
will reconnect with those signals.
Hmm.
It's hard at first, right? Which is why I was asking
Hmm.
you like what was really difficult about your healing journey, because I think
Hmm.
that's really hard at first. Like when you've been so
Hmm. Hmm.
disconnected from your body, you don't know how to listen to it, right?
Yeah.
And you're still kind of outsourcing a lot of, I don't know what to eat, the carbs are scary, all these things,
Hmm.
right? But it's
Yeah.
kind of just staying the course long enough
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it comes back. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like when you're, um, before you, I mean, like when you're even on this journey, or even before you're like, how do I start trusting my body?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's a practice, but when you, it's like a muscle, and once you exercise
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
it becomes like second nature,
Yeah.
and then it starts clicking, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's a muscle that a lot of people don't even know how to exercise because
Yeah.
we're so used to just numbing ourselves with all the information that's just like given out to us. Um, yeah, which is a shame because obviously there are effects that are the effects of it is just it's affecting your day-to-day life because
Yeah.
eating becomes scary. You're constantly,
Yeah.
and I feel like, and that's why I say that your relationship with your food and your body is so important because when you are struggling with it, it affects your day to day where you're constantly consumed by the thoughts of food and your body,
Yeah.
where you're missing out on a lot of joyful moments with
Mm.
your loved ones,
Mm.
or you're constant and whenever you go to let's say if you're working out, you're constantly working out with the energy that you need to earn or burn your calories. And by that energy, you're never really going to achieve anything healthy. It's
I
always going to
know.
be with that unhealthy energy.
Yeah.
So you just wonder like what's the point?
Yeah, like if you're
Um,
doing it out of fear, you're not going to get more self-compassion and love at the
uh-huh.
other end, right?
Exactly. It's like you're punishing yourself. But
Yeah.
to me, I used to have a horrible relationship with working out. I hated it. And
Mm,
now that I'm still working out the same amount, like I'm still working out 4 to 5 days, but I almost crave it now. I love
yeah.
it. But it's like my time. It's like a meditation for me. And that's because I've worked on what moving my body means for me. And
Yes.
I've like separated that from my weight and earning or burning calories.
Yes. I
A-
love
And
I
it's been
love that.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's been like 2 years, I think, and I haven't even checked my weight because
Mm.
that's something that I personally don't like to do for myself.
No, we don't own scales. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really
We
not
don't
right.
own scales in our house, yeah.
Mm. I so love that you said that because that's one of my other like pet hates is when people
Hmm.
equate like put calories on food because it's like it
Hmm.
is the most random thing to look at something.
Yeah,
It's like saying
yeah,
like Rhea is just hair or something. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
like it's like
Yeah,
it's separate.
yeah. It's almost like a but now that the information is there, people are obviously going to notice it, and then it's going to play with their mindset about that certain food. And again, it's like the whole it goes into the whole idea of categorizing food as good food and then bad food. And as
Hmm.
you said, having a basic nutrition understanding about food is important, but what really goes overboard and what really creates a lot of fear is when you go into categorizing food into good and bad, and when you start eating your food like that because it just creates so much fear around
Hmm.
food that isn't necessary.
Hmm. And it's the intention behind it as well. Like when you mentioned about the working out, when you're doing it because your body enjoys it,
Yeah.
that's a
Hmm.
completely different energy to like, I just
Yeah.
ate some cake and I need to like
Yeah.
work this off. How the heck do you do that anyway? Like you can't even measure that. That's not,
Yeah.
it's like it's actually just a mind. It's just a mind fuck because
Yeah.
you have
It's so
no
true.
idea what it's actually doing in your
Hmm.
body. And like one of the things that I teach people about is that, when you're eating, it's not just the kind of the physical component of the food, it's also the energy you are bringing to it. And
Hmm.
that is
Yeah.
no small part, like the
Hmm.
fact that like you can actually digest way better and extract
Hmm.
nutrients way better if you actually get pleasure from it, if you actually really enjoy
Hmm.
it. Like this is like
Yeah.
scientifically proven.
Hmm.
And so again, it's just about not reducing food to one thing or something else,
Yeah.
which
And,
like, sorry.
sorry, please go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say like one of the other things I wanted to draw out because I heard it in something you said is that, when you were working on your relationship with food, you also looked at, the anxiety and the confidence.
Hmm.
And it's funny because the word confidence and trust is like interchangeable, right? Um,
Hmm.
and I just think like that's so important to mention because I always feel like, I mean, I say that when you heal your relationship with food, it's actually a doorway to healing much deeper things in like personal transformation.
That's so true.
Because it really
Hmm.
is, right? Because food is such a
Hmm.
central pillar in our lives, and how we relate with our bodies is, we're with our bodies forever.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you work on that, like, that will have a flow-on effect into so
Hmm.
many other areas of your life.
You're so right because I honestly feel like um when I did understand why I was consuming food the way I was, I sort of understood I understood the emotions that I was trying to address or
Yes.
the feeling that I was trying to fill.
Yeah.
And that really puts into perspective um so much like it puts into perspective the traumas that you've just been numbing or
Yeah.
something that you haven't been able to even highlight.
Yes.
And the interesting part is when you are able to highlight it, then you don't feel like turning to food that
Mm.
often. And then when you keep on doing that as practice,
Yes.
then you understand that okay, maybe it wasn't the food, it was the emotion that
Yes.
you were trying to avoid or that trauma that you were trying not to feel.
Yes, yes, that is huge. I really do think
Yeah,
like because I've never worked with anyone who just needed a nutritional tweak. Like
yeah.
like I haven't come across that person, but I know there are some
Mhm.
people for whom it really is just like they actually just didn't know that eating a lot of sugar wasn't
Yeah.
great. But that's like a really small amount of people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do find like what you said, the key for most people, it really is like food really becomes a doorway for them to understand where they're not actually connecting with themselves and they're
Hmm.
using food to either numb or to self-soothe, which by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. Like
Yeah.
one of the things that like I think is so important to learn on the healing journey is that it's not about getting rid of these behaviors.
Hmm.
It's about how can you actually meet those needs that you couldn't meet.
Hmm.
And food
Hmm.
was just a very
Yeah.
paltry substitute, right?
Hmm.
Which
Yeah.
did something,
And
but it didn't really go deep enough.
that's so true. And I think it's about how intentional are you being with your emotions and how honest are you being with yourself.
Yes.
And that's why I feel like food is so confusing because we
Yeah.
use food during happy times, sad times,
Yes.
and that's why food can get so
Yeah.
confusing for the brain.
Yeah.
And again, it's not bad to eat food when you're happy or when you're sad, but what is the energy that
Yeah.
you're bringing to the table? And are you truly being honest with yourself and also addressing the emotion? Because I think that's the most important part is
Mm-hmm.
you can't use food as a coping mechanism,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
You need to be honest with yourself
Yeah.
during those times. And
Yeah.
um I feel like that's one of the best ways you can truly be able to have a healthy relationship with food when you're like, yeah, I might enjoy this chocolate, but I'm also aware that I need to address these
Yes.
emotions. I feel
100%.
like no having that balance in your
Yeah.
in life is so important.
And having the awareness as well, right? I think
Yeah.
I think in
Yeah.
those moments, because like here's the thing, like I feel like when you don't yet have the capacity to actually meet
Hmm.
yourself, then it's actually 100% okay to use food. Because if you
Hmm.
don't do that, you actually
Hmm.
create more stress in the body, right? And so
Uh-huh.
like if
Yeah.
you need it, use it until you don't need
Uh-huh.
it. Like training wheels in a way.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
they're not
Absolutely.
wrong. And I think that's
Yeah.
the biggest mind shift that I'm so passionate about sharing is just that do not ever see binging or emotional eating or overeating or, don't ever see them
Yeah.
as a problem. Like this
Yeah.
is the best you can do at the moment. And
Yeah.
making that wrong doesn't help you heal. It only helps,
Yeah.
like you can heal when you can realize that, okay, this is the best I can do in this moment. How can
Yeah.
I learn now to better take care of
Yeah.
myself? And then eventually
Uh,
don't need these.
Exactly. And it's like, and I feel like that is, I used to, I mean, what you're saying is exactly what I used to go through initially in my healing, like when I was healing, where it was first I had to meet myself with compassion.
Yes.
And even when I that's why I said that it's not always progress doesn't always look like, okay, I've stopped binging. I mean, that's not how the journey would look like. I
Mm.
mean, it's that you're slowly or you have to start being compassionate with yourself, and that's when your binges slowly start to reduce.
Yes.
And then it comes to a point where you don't feel like using food as a coping mechanism. And even when you do on those days, as you said, it's like you're being honest with yourself. You're
Mm.
doing it in a way that, okay, it's fine, it's
Mhm.
it's it's normal, it's human, but I'm also going to address these emotions when, as you said, when I do feel up to it, when I do feel ready. But it's
Mm.
about removing the whole judgment behind it, because I feel like
Yeah.
the moment you remove the judgment, the guilt, and the shame, it's not a big deal. A
Yes.
piece of cake is just a piece of cake. And,
Yes.
if you do like eat past fullness or overeat, it's like, okay, I mean, I'll do better next time rather than going to this whole, guilt and shame. Oh, I have to restrict tomorrow. And that just makes
Hmm.
those habits,
Hmm.
you know, just like snowball. And then
Yeah.
you're back into a cycle. And more than anything, I think in the cycle, the worst thing is the guilt and the shame
Yeah.
that you feel and the restriction that you put your body through, because it just throws your whole system off completely.
So true. Yeah. Especially with that part about the guilt and the shame, because like I don't think ultimately it's really about the food. It's about what you made it mean, right? Because like you said, if
Exactly.
you overate a little, like you could treat that as like a danger, or
Hmm.
you could just see it as like, oh, this is information. Now I can
Yeah,
feel what it feels like when I'm full. Okay, let me
exactly.
connect with this feeling so I remember, right? But I
Yeah,
think what
yeah,
happens is like when that happens, our body actually feels like shit, this is like dangerous. So I better
yeah.
like try and make this go away,
Like
you
I've
know?
messed up, so I have to go back on track.
Hmm.
And the worst thing that I think what that I don't like hearing is I need to get back on track, because even like
Hmm.
when you go for holidays, I mean, I used to think that way. I used to be like, oh, I need to get back on track, and I'm like, no, that's just information, as you
Yeah,
said, that you sort of gain, and your body finds a way. If you do build that amount of trust, your body
yeah,
finds this way to bring itself back to balance.
yeah,
So it's about not feeling like you've done something wrong or you've messed up, and not making it about guilt or shame, and actually just enjoying yourself and being in the moment. And I feel like that's one of the things that we honestly forget when we're struggling with our food and our bodies, like
yeah,
being in the moment, really enjoying that. And for me, that's one of the biggest things that really pushed me, is that, okay, how long am I going to strip myself away from my joy and
mhm,
happiness and actually stop myself from living? You know, I don't want to be 80 and still ashamed of eating, because from a basic level, I was just ashamed of eating my normal meals. I would
yeah.
question it.
Yeah. Wow, I love that you shared that. And it really is about the present moment, hey? Because I think when you are like, when you have a pattern, right, usually
Mhm.
stemming from some sort of trauma or some sort of unprocessed event, then you're not in the present, right? When you're eating,
Mhm.
you're actually kind of worried about,
Exactly.
like we were talking before, like when you overeat can feel like danger when there is no
Hmm.
danger, right? And it's
Hmm.
just so interesting that I know it's like such a trope, all about being in the present, all about being in the present, but it kind of really is,
Yeah,
simplistically, it really is. It's about not carrying the stories and not worrying about like what may happen, but actually being like, can I actually just be present here? And there is no on track or off track because I'm always here. This is my track,
here. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah.
And the thing with food is that I think I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
It'll come back to me. It'll
Yeah,
come
no,
back
I
to me.
completely I understand that. That happens to me
Mhm.
like every second. Yeah, one final thing I'd love to ask you about is so now that you have, this you've healed from this experience, how do you find like helping other women do the same, like in this progress? Like what do you find people are responding to and what are usually the root things that your clients are struggling with?
So I think a lot of it is, as we discussed, it's a lot of hidden traumas that people aren't aware of,
Mm.
and they didn't even realize that food has become their coping mechanism of.
Yes.
I think, a lot of the times it's how to trust their body to build trust,
Mm.
and how to even start looking at their body in a lens where they aren't feeling ashamed of their body. Like
Mm.
how do you almost transform that lens? Because I feel like as humans we have such a negative bias.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
feel like when we have those thoughts about our bodies, it can almost distort our own perception
Mhm.
of the way our body looks. So I feel like a lot of the times that those are the main challenges that I often see women come across when they work with me.
Mhm.
Um, I feel it's almost like there's a lot of fear of how do I trust myself? How do I wean off diets and calorie
Mhm.
tracking? How do I stop? Because control feels like safety. You
Mm.
know, when you're constantly controlling, it feels like safety because it's giving you a certain outcome that feels safe because you want to look a certain way to there's several reasons for that. Could be external validation, could be acceptance,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a lot to do with sort of exchanging that safety with a lot of building self-trust, confidence
Yeah.
within yourself and letting go of that.
Yeah.
I think
Real
those are the
safety.
main, yeah, real safety. And that I feel like real safety is only it's only built with yourself.
Mhm.
I don't think anything can give you that real safety. And only when you're able to build that for yourself are you actually able to look at your body in in a different light. Because I mean, I experienced it even at like my lowest weight, which was like 45 kgs, I still wasn't safe. I was still insecure. I still
Yes.
wanted more,
Yeah.
you know. And now when I've healed myself from not attaching myself to a number, I'm still able to be confident in my body and still
Mhm.
show up and not put my body down. It's because I found safety from within, you
Yes.
know. So I think it's a
Ah.
lot about getting letting go of those attachments that we have.
Yes, hallelujah. That really is it, isn't it? Like ultimately, it always comes back to safety. Like it seems safety is like the most basic thing, but it's
Mhm,
the most important thing. You know, I feel like that's the thing people neglect. They always look for like complex reasons on top
mhm,
without
mhm.
addressing the most important thing is with safety. You know, it's like,
Exactly.
you know, because approval usually means more safety, right? Or
Exactly.
validation usually means more
Acceptance. Yeah.
safety, right? But they're all
Mhm.
from the outside, and you
Yeah.
just can't build your house in here on someone else's opinions, right? It's just not possible.
Absolutely.
Oh man, this has
Absolutely.
been such an amazing conversation. Before we wrap up, Ria, would you like to
Mhm.
share the offerings that you have now and how women can reach out to you and work with you?
So I currently run a one-to-one coaching program. It's called Embodied Nourishment. I'm actually taking applications for it. So we begin on the 11th of May. So again, we work on a lot of mindset shifts around food and body. And it's a 12-week long journey. And yeah, I have a lot of other resources on my website.
Mhm.
And yes, that's rheajassal.com. And people can reach out to me on my Instagram. It's you can find me on Rhea Jassal.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share all of those in the notes. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you,
I'm
Ria.
so
This has
glad
been
we could do this.
I know. I love these conversations. You learn so much. And it's
Absolutely.
also it feels really good to know that that this work is being done because it's just
Mhm.
so important. So
I
thank you so
absolutely
much.
agree.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank you
so
so much.
much. Thank you for having me. And I'm so glad to have yeah, to have done this podcast with you.